one of the reasons we thought of putting this together is that we all have a skill of some sort, but it's kind of a bridge of us making money off that skill or kind of doing what we love without getting money into it. So hopefully through this conversation, you'll be able to make money or find ways or loopholes to actually get to the money. So today we've got this panel of cool, creative, and clever individuals. I'll get them to introduce themselves in a second. And throughout the whole conversation, you guys are all welcome to ask questions or raise any points. Just lift your hand and I'll come to you. Tash.
Good day, everyone. My name is Bodi, and I'm the program manager for Maxim Digital, which is a business incubator and we basically focus on commercializing creativity to allow for a platform for the creatives to get into the entrepreneurship space. Some of my background is that I've worked with CEDA before, so I've come from a very strong business background, project management background, worked with various incubators in a number of sectors. So I bring a lot of business development knowledge to the industry or to the sector itself. Thanks.
What's up, guys? I'm Cukia, Kimani, but everyone calls me Sugar. I'm the business and technical director at a small game development studio from right here in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nyama Corp. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. We're doing some cool stuff. So we're part of also the Maxim Digital incubation program. So we're part of that, and yeah, we make games.
Cool. Hi, my name is Andrew Similane. I'm an entrepreneur and also I'm a content producer and I'm a startup consultant. So my job also entails like building spaces. We have a dream of building spaces across the SADC region. So we just keep doing that for now. Yeah.
My name is Jason. I run a company called Black Belt. Black Belt is a collective of creatives. We specialize mainly in motion graphics and 3D. We also have game development on our radar.
Hello, everyone. My name is Regina, and I'm an electrical and computer engineer by profession. But now I'm a founder and a managing director at Educate 67 Games, where we try to make games that serve other purposes other than entertainment. So we make educational games, and now I'm like game consulting for like making other games that are like community uplifting.
Nice. Okay, cool. So let's get straight into it. Andrew, so how has the digital space changed the idea of being an entrepreneur? I mean, has this digital advancement in technology affected being an entrepreneur?
100%. I mean, for us, it's been great, I think, for the past 7 years now, because we started out in 2011 creating content for our YouTube channel, which got verified, I think, in 2012 or 2013. So essentially, with that, we've been able to just create content and put it out and build an audience without relying on a broadcaster to do that for us. Yeah. I hate broadcasters. I don't like
T's and C's.
Yeah, I don't like those guys, and I don't like what they do. And I mean, it's been great. I mean, because we keep creating content and more opportunities are coming up for us. So now we are sustainable as a business. We're able to create, profit from all the work that we do for various clients.
So you'd say it kind of kills certain barriers to industry?
Definitely. I mean, there was that big barrier for us in terms of like, the broadcasters, your SABCs and your multi-choice. But, with our own platform, even right now, what we're planning to do is just migrate from YouTube and have our own independent platform. And we get to like own the rights to all the content. We get to own all the content, and nobody can use it without our permission and all that stuff. Yeah. So I think like next year, Feb, the plan is to launch a multi-channel network and also work with other content producers in the SADC region and also teach them how to monetize content, because that's another thing that we specialize in now, monetizing content, any piece of content. Yeah.
Nice. So bringing it home to the gaming industry, Regina or Sugar, maybe one of you can answer this. Has the gaming and digital space met entrepreneurship in South Africa? I mean, are there the same amounts of opportunities found in overseas in South Africa? Can somebody make a living off gaming?
I think absolutely. We just came back from, I've been in Europe for a bit of time now, and you go over there and it's great, they have a much more established game development industry, but ever since self-distribution came onto the playground, everyone has fair game. You talking to the same press people who are online, everyone can download their game if you have the internet. So if you're a guy in South Africa and you got a computer and an internet action, you can make just as much money and probably more because of the economics here in South Africa than you would with your counterparts in like Sweden or Norway or Germany, because it's just that accessible, and that makes it really cool for us to also export our culture as well.
To what extent would you say the gaming industry is at the same level as international? I mean, I know we don't have as big gaming festivals like they have there, but is the skill sets around here?
I would say that we're at the same level in terms of the quality of work that comes out of it. I mean, just being able as us, like two guys who formed a small team here, being able to be on a Twitch channel with guys who have games that have 4 million people, or The Sims or FIFA. I mean, it's like you're kind of like, you're not competing with those guys, but you are showing that South Africa has that talent.
Yeah.
And also other studios like Freelance who have Broforce or QCF who've done a lot of international success. It shows that South Africa has the skills. We might not have a big community or big industry, but we can compete at an international level very well.
Yeah. Let's go to Jason. So you have this great idea, but you still need to make ends meet. There's rent, there's all this stuff. I mean, how do you keep doing what you love but still make money? How do you do what you love and make money? Or how do you not sacrifice what you love doing to make money?
I would say that it just needs to align. You've got to align whatever it is that you're trying to make money with your passion and your end goal. If you can do that, I think you'd find more likely that you'd still go into that direction rather than take a job at like a bank if you're trying to make games. You know what I mean?
But wouldn't you say then it's also like a means to, do it with the means to an end? Like,
sure, but if you're substituting most of your time in a bank rather than actually putting in the time to do what you want to do, then your time is less spent on what you actually want to do. So yeah. I'd say your best bet is to try and find an avenue that will get you in at least the same industry. So if you're like editing is a nice throughway for the media industry. So it's an easy skill to pick up. There's always a need for editors. If at least align yourself with the same kind of industry to get the motivation going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regina, I don't know if you could break down some of the revenue models that are available within the gaming industry. I mean, how does one go about making money once you've developed a game or in the process of developing a game?
Well, I'll speak so there are genres like in games, like there are genres in like music and music videos and movies. I'll speak like from the serious games perspective. So serious games are like games that are not mainly for entertainment. So games that are like made to advertise, games that are like made to educate or collect data and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's like where I work. And for that, as you can like approach different organizations. Say you want to make a game that is like complementing maths or complementing science, then you will know that, okay, I should be looking like to approach the Department of Science. I should be like approaching like the Department of Education and whatnot. And say you're making a game, like one of our games that is teaching about sexuality and consent, then
Nice, that must be a fun game.
Sort of. But yeah, then you know that like you can be approaching organizations such as Love Life or health departments and all of that. And you can also just make games and release them. Like let people play. For me, when I was starting, I was making games for primary school kids to like complement their primary school learning.
Learning.
Yeah, so I would go to schools as I was approaching the Department of Education, that takes 8 months.
Processes.
Yeah, so I'll go to schools and say, I can like offer you an experience. I can like come with the arcades and computers and turn like your school into sort of like a game pop-up. Yeah, the arcade that we have next door. And then you can like, each learner will pay 25 rand or 30 rand. And in that process, you like making money. And you can also try to sell your games, but that is like complicated due
Could
to
we
the
get Sugar
policies.
onto this? I don't know if you have a few ways that you guys have seen or figured out to make money off the stuff you produce.
Well, so as Nyamoka, we focus on creating our own IP to sell internationally. So we're working on Semblance. And I haven't commercially released a game. It's our first one, but we've gone through a few learning processes, especially of trying to get funding for the game. And then also the idea of when we sell it, what are the things that are realistic in this current market? And I think, like Regina said, I mean, you can just make a game, you can put it on Steam, you can put it on the App Store, and you can hope for the best. But you always want to try and maximize how many players you can get, and it all comes down to the genre and what type of game you're making. So with us, it's like we finish a game and we sell it, we try our best to do the marketing, and we get a bunch of money afterwards. Hopefully we recover our costs and make enough to make the same game.
So is it in the gaming industry, is it a matter of doing it at loss, well, doing it first and then try selling it, or is there a way you can kind of leverage the production?
So I think now with very interesting things that happen like in Steam called early access, so you can kind of get a game to a beta level and then it's playable, and so you can start getting a fan base. So you've spent a bit of money, you can't really finish the game, but you throw it out there, and now you start building the game with a community. And that's what people like Free Lives have done very well with Broforce and with their new games like General Jousting and as well as Gorn. But I think for games like that, you really need to have that strategy in mind in terms of what's the smallest slice of game that I can put out there that someone can keep playing over and over again because it's not finished. And then when you release a finished product or updates, you get more players like that. So you can fund your development as you're making it with a community. And then you can also go with like free-to-play model, which is very popular on mobile, but also in PC games. And that's where you design your game in a way that people can buy into it or buy currency or just buy stuff in the game, which can also be a way of like developing your game. And I think it all comes down to what's the type of game you're making and how do you want to make money. So if you're going to make money through like free to play, then you have to design it in a way that you're not just finished once it's out. You have updates every 3 months, and you have like a life cycle of how long you're going to be working this game, and you're always growing your player base. Because with models like that, you're not going to have everyone spending money on it, but you want the 20% or the 30% that are going to spend money on it to really buy into it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Tash, Sugar touched on IP and like protecting yourself. I mean, I know in the creative industry, and I'm sure in the gaming industry, it's very important to protect your ideas and what you create. So could you give us a brief explanation on what IP is and how, what are some of the important things to know about it?
Okay, thank you for that, Lee. With regards to IP is obviously your intellectual property. It's what you own as an individual. That's just basically in that there. So there's a lot of people out there, especially in the gaming industry, that have the my precious mentality. You know, I'm going to keep it to myself. It's mine. You know, but it's a good thing to have that. It's a good thing to know that this is my idea and I want to take it out there. But from a other point of view, touching on all the other things that the guys spoke about in terms of how do you fund your game? How do you actually get that game out there? You need to learn to realize how you're going to release certain levels of your IP out there or some levels of your idea itself. So I always believe in a proactive IP strategy. Come up with an IP strategy beforehand. Know in terms of your value chain or your life cycle of that game, what am I going to release at different points? Set in place your compliance levels, your legal levels, get your NDAs, your non-disclosure agreements put in place. There's various different things that can be done just to protect your IP at different stages of the actual game or actual life cycle of your business itself. Because in order to access funding, in order to get yourself out there, you're going to have to release something. And I've come across various people in the incubation program that whereby they want to just keep that to themselves. And that's pretty much where it'll always stay. You're not going to get out there. You're not going to actually drive into that market that you should be doing if you're not willing to release certain levels at certain points, but strategically on that.
So is it, so is it very necessary to have that done from the get-go because you are going out there and telling people about your game, marketing your game, so that this process should happen before you start the marketing?
Yeah, it should, yes. Just to answer you, yes. One of the biggest things with startups is compliance. Everybody tells me, yes, as a startup, I ask them, what do you need? Oh, I need money, I need funding, or I need market access, or I need no, you need compliance. You need to be compliant, because if you're compliant, you can get into a market. If you're compliant, you can get funding. So part of your compliance is that IP strategy. And us as Maxim, we help you with that, and I know it sounds like a little bit of a long shot, but I'm kind of representing government over here, which is like, wow, like sheesh, government in the gaming industry, okay? But I come from the Innovation Hub. That's where Maxim Digital sits from. And we're actually trying to change the mindset of government to realize that this is where the guys are playing. This is the future of the digital space. Gaming and virtual reality and animation and so forth and things like that is what we should be playing in. And we're trying to get them to realize that compliance in those areas is important. So even when it comes to funding, if you guys are compliant and getting in order, funding and stuff will follow through eventually.
Yeah. Regina, we were having a conversation earlier that you're now working with government. Are there any opportunities in the gaming creative spaces that are coming up that we should know about?
I honestly feel like the gaming industry in South Africa, it's picking up. They starting to see the value of games beyond just educational or serious games, just also as one of the contributing factors to grow the economy. So I'm part of the implementing partner at Serious About Games, and it's sponsored by the Department of Economy and Tourism in Cape Town, in Western Cape. So what they've done a study, and they've identified the game industry as one of the industries to grow.
That is booming.
That is blooming to grow the economy and to the opportunities for young unemployed people.
Yeah.
So they have a plan for the next 10 years to grow that industry. So what we're doing now is just helping them bring people together, because they say that people who are in different industries, like people who make sound or people who are in the music industry, they don't see themselves as the integral part of the game developers.
Yeah.
People who write books, short stories, they don't see
there's
themselves.
Scripting in gaming, there's storyboarding,
there's narratives, there's whatnot. So those people also, we're bringing them together to join the game industry, and they're also coders and people who can draw and animate. So what we do at Serious About Games, we're trying to bring all those people together, and at the same time helping the government. So the government also is saying that they are struggling to engage with the youth, and they've identified games as one of the potential areas to engage young people. And they were saying that they're struggling to get young people to meetings, young people to fill up government forms and all of that. So they using games to collect relevant data. So I think going forward, we'll be seeing a lot of interesting things from the government.
Jason, so especially in the gaming and creative industry, your skill set does play a big role. You can't expect to develop a tech and game type without a certain knowledge of certain things. How are some of the ways that you are enabling others to actually get to a certain level of professional?
Sure.
Professional.
I think it's about looking at the output. I run a post-production facility, and we use our skills in various ways. I think the first thing to establish is making yourself versatile, making yourself multi-talented and multi-skilled. Sticking to one thing is kind of dangerous in the creative field, especially where we're going now. It's also limiting. There's so much to learn out there, the internet, YouTube. There's I've learned so much. There's tutorials out there. So one of the ways that we kind of getting people into the industry is by putting a showreel together.
Yeah.
So in the gaming space, I would like think that the equivalent of that would be putting a game together, right? So you'd need to like at least have some 3D skills, and that 3D skill can adapt itself into various like markets. So
Yeah.
I would say definitely number one, make yourself versatile and know exactly where you're going. Like know what that end product is going to be. If it's a showreel, if it's a specific game, if it's like if you're creating assets for that game that you can put to a portfolio that other people can pick up in different industries and see.
Do you think it's it's a handicap to like try be the master of all, in the sense that you want to code the game, you want to actually produce the visuals of the game and create all the assets of it? Is that a handicap? Is that a pro or a con?
I would see it as a pro. For myself personally, like I've taken on directing, I've taken on cinematography, I've taken on so many disciplines within the realm of like just being creative, which has led me to so many different opportunities.
Yeah.
From projection mapping to making games. It's like I'm not limiting myself to a specific thing. At the same time, it's allowing me to grow.
Yeah.
I would say that it would be a bit detrimental if you're trying to learn coding. That's a world that I don't know. Maybe it's something you'd have to spend a lot of time doing. And if you're like jumping all over the place and not really focusing on that,
You're not going to get anywhere.
It might not be like to where you need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please carry on.
I just want to almost challenge you on that one, okay? Because it's not at a point of whereby I've come across in the incubation space, we've come across guys that have no skills, but they have brilliant ideas. And at the end of the day, I believe something that no matter what you're doing, it really comes down to the money. It really comes down to the business side of it. Am I going to make money on this? So I may not be a creative, I may not have that skill or that technical skill, but if I'm part of an ecosystem and I'm part of a bigger market aspect, I can tap into collaboration. I can tap into different networks. I can be able to say, fine, I don't know that coding or I don't know those different aspects, but maybe because I'm part of a system, I can collaborate with somebody and I can work with somebody. Remember, the gaming industry in SA is still growing. It's so far from where we should be. And in order for us to say, oh, we want to compete with everybody else around the world, but we need to at least, or compete with each other, we need to actually come together and work together to build that industry. Then we can compete at a later stage. So sometimes it's not always having all the skills, because not everybody's a Jason. So you can work with others. You can be open to collaboration. So that's just my 2 cents.
Sugar?
Oh yeah, let me add a few 2 cents there. I think both of what you're saying is absolutely correct, and I think for me, learning all aspects is not about being the best at all of them. It's that I think for me is that I had a background as a programmer. That's what I did. I could write code, and designed a few stuff, did a few things on Photoshop. It's like you kind of understand the whole end of the game, right? And at that point is that I'm not gonna go and do the art for a particular game, but now I have the skills to actually understand what their aspect is, so communication becomes really good.
Yeah.
And the thing is that once you have to know about the whole cycle around making a video game, then you can also fall into the line of a producer, and that's very important in making games, because being able to know like the pipeline here is gonna be bottlenecked here, so we should move this around, and it's good because you know all aspects. But I definitely think with what Tash is saying is that when you actually want to now put it in a product that's going to be sellable, or like you can like look at this, it's good to like collaborate with people. And I think especially like if let's say you're two companies and one company is really strong with the 3D animation, one company is good with development, it's like how do you make a smart partnership? You leverage the risk on two companies to make the product together, and that way you're making a good game.
Yeah, so basically one would need to understand the whole factory's work, but just be focused on their part in the factory, but know the whole thing.
It's good to know the whole thing, yeah.
Hundreds. And speak. Yes. Okay, I think keep your one. Jump around.
Okay, yeah, like it's a question for all you guys. Like I just want to find out, like just in terms of gamification and within the general startup, small business industry, how do we, as entrepreneurs, I might not be heavily involved within the tech and gamification industry, but looking at how do I gamify and how do I create a community, like you were saying, in terms of either my marketing to say either rewards or etc. So like, what are the best practices, looking at that aspect in terms of growing my community, creating the engagement, like you did say, like you just needed 20%, you know, so how do you gamify and get that 20% to be engaged while the other people are just looking at your product, but you have that core 20%. So what kind of principles do you guys use?
I think like in the game industry, hype is everything, right? So you need to like be joining communities that like within South Africa and like internationally, because I feel like they say that hundreds of games are released every day, like on Steam or on Itch or even like on Google Play. So for anyone to even look at your game, is you need to like get people to review, and that's the procedure. Like I see like with the successful games in South Africa, everyone who sort of made it got like good reviews from like game magazines or like YouTube people who always stream. And the first point is to join the communities. So in South Africa, we have like Make Games SA, where people who are very interested in games meet up monthly and hype each other's games. You can like showcase your game. That's also like where you start to grow your fan base. And then after that, you go to like organizations such as AISA. There was a guy who was wearing like a blue suit, Pac-Man suit around. That guy is like responsible to getting people jobs, or yeah, he goes around like sourcing jobs to like give to game studios sometimes. And he also like advocate for a lot of game developers. He's like a lawyer and a business analyst. So he mostly like advocate for everyone who knows like your expertise, what sort of like genre are you working with, and what are you trying to do, and like he goes around advocating. So there's a membership fee. Most of the game developers in South Africa join that community, and then like you grow from there. And then for serious games, like gamifying educational content or gamifying so that you can like be able to advertise for Pick and Pay or Words or Spare, like we see in these days, is you can also like join communities such as Serious About Games. So just find out about like the communities that exist around and go to conferences such as this. When I think Broforce was like part of Amaze, early days of Amaze, where they showcased like their game at like one of the arcade pop-ups that Amaze had. So be able to like showcase your even light version of your game. If you have like some budget, come to Joburg, go to Berlin, and go to like conferences such as GDC that happen like yearly for game developers. That's where you grow like your fan base, and that's also where you get like most of the reviews. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like any other business, right? So the approach should be like the lean startup approach. So just try to get out of the building as soon as possible. So once you've built your minimum viable product, your next thing is to make sure that people get to see it, people get to experience the product or the service that you have for them. And also you need to consider the feedback, right? So whatever people are telling you, you need to take that and integrate it into your product development. That's what I think. So the sooner you get out of the building, the better. So you'd know if the product is going to work or not. Because what usually happens is that we try and brainstorm and try and build products for months and months, only to find out that people actually don't give a fuck about it. And that's pretty much it, yeah.
Thank you for that. Another thing, another angle that I would look at, again from the business point of side, is that look at a point whereby you can have Project A that funds Project B. You know, so you build a name not so much for your game or for the thing, but build a name around your company. So the company becomes well known. So you're pushing out smaller indie games, you're pushing out games every now and then that create some form of a revenue, some form of a point of whereby that will help you to fund and build a name and build a brand around that eventually when that big game comes out, it's already it has an easier flow into the market at that point. So it's about building that brand at the end of the day on that.
While you've got the mic, I mean, you run an incubator, and so could you explain to everybody what you could bring to them? I mean, why would one want to go join an incubator besides for using their office space and the internet? I feel like that's what incubators. I feel like that's what incubators are these days, just office space and internet.
We glorified Wi-Fi centers.
That's what you are.
Pretty much. We sit and twiddle our thumbs and hope for the best. But on a serious note, well, being part of an incubator, a lot of the problem is that a lot of incubators have just become those glorified Wi-Fi centers, and there's just there's a space, go and work. With us, we work on a different model. We bring in much more added value services. Me being part of an incubation program or part of running incubators and not just being part of a program itself. When I was at CEDA, we ran about 57 incubators that assisted over 2,700 startups in various different sectors, in about 28 different sectors. So I come with very strong knowledge on how an incubator should be run. And an incubator is not just Wi-Fi, it's not just space. So what we do is we give access to market, we allow different access points. We've got, I'm just talking about Maxim Digital, okay, because I can't talk about everybody else who are just those Wi-Fi centers. Okay, so what we do is we provide access to market. We link up with different publishers, we link up with different industry partners, and we actually give advice based on that there. So we bring in mentorship programs onto that there. We also we allow for access to funding. Now, us as an incubator, we don't offer funding. I can't tell you, yes, come join me and I'm going to give you an X amount of money, but I can help you build that. I can help you access funding that. And I can and that's one of the biggest things what we do is we do business development planning, we do various different models and the famous business plans. Okay, but we help you build that there. We help you build that strategy that you can actually now go out and access those markets and access that different types of funding. So some of our added value services would be business mentorship, business development, training in financial management or at least financial systems. We offer certain level of technical skills and technical training, access to equipment, because some guys have brilliant ideas, but they don't have access to the equipment or software licenses and stuff like that, which is expensive. So we actually have incubator at the incubator. We have testing machines, we have gaming machines, we have consoles, we have all those different things that can come in there, interact, build your brand, build your computer, and utilize that there at the center itself. So I would say being part of an incubator can be a lot more than just Wi-Fi. It's a matter of also of how you access those different services that the center has to offer.
And I just also add, it's also the people, right?
Yeah, the sense of collaboration.
For me, that's one of the big things, apart from the Wi-Fi and the space, is that as a small team, like Ben and I work on our game, we're two of us, and there are a lot of things you want to collaborate and make bigger things. And I feel being an incubator, and because someone's already vetted this person that's going to be here, is that you can now reach out to them and say, okay, you're good at 3D animation, let's try this thing, let's try that thing. And like back to what you said in the beginning, collaboration is key in the creative industry.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to add as well, a lot of times startups, a startup can do anything and everything. If a client comes to you and asks you, can you do this? Yes, I can do this. Can you do that? Yes, I can do that. Okay, because you're a startup. You can do anything and everything. That's what you believe in. And then you lose some credibility. Some guys think, can this guy actually do it? But when you're part of an incubator, you have an umbrella body. You have somebody that's backing you. And I tell this to the guys as well. You guys secure a meeting with the client, take me with. Let's go. I'll sit down over there. I'll present. I'll say we are the guys that are taking the knock, or we are the guys that are guaranteeing that these guys will follow through with the work. So that's something that I think a lot of incubators or a lot of startups need that basis, is to actually give that support structure behind the startup itself.
Yeah. Andrew, you've started an incubator before. Is the incubator space becoming saturated in a sense? Are people now just starting spaces just because?
Yeah, well, it is, and that sucks, right? So I think also it defeats the purpose of collaborating. For example, you'd find that the government has like various incubation spaces, which also does not make any sense. All these different government agencies are starting their own incubation spaces. And I'm like, you guys work for the same guy. Like, really? Why can't you collaborate? But I mean, you find that particularly here in Johannesburg, because Black Nation and Creative Nestlings are also working on a research paper around hubs and co-working, like creative co-working spaces in the SADC region. So we're busy collecting data around that stuff. And we've also discovered that, here in Johannesburg, there's quite a few. In Cape Town, you have a lot more. And South Africa is actually leading in that aspect. We have more incubation spaces than any of the other SADC, countries.
Really?
So, I mean, for me, that also sucks. And that's something I'm trying to change as well. I'm trying to get a lot of these government agencies that I interact with to collaborate and start one space, for goodness sake, So it doesn't make sense for Cornhill to have its own co-working space, for Bassa to have its own co-working space. I mean, they're all government agencies, right? So why not collaborate? I mean, at the end of the day, you're also trying to help out the creatives or the creative entrepreneurs. You know what I'm saying? So again, we need to pull our resources together and see what we can achieve. And also, I mean, co-working spaces or incubation is like pretty cool. I mean, we started off at Josie Hub, and Josie Hub was an amazing space for us. And we're still at Josie Hub. We're between Josie Hub and the JNB Hive here in Braamfontein. So, and those two spaces are fantastic for us, and they work and they support us in different ways. So, which is very great, and I love that. I enjoy that as a creative practitioner and as an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. One is in Johannesburg or like in around to find people to collaborate with, like what platforms are available to like game devs to like sort of plug the skills that you don't have. And 2, with how saturated like the game market is it still like as viable to basically just self-publish a game? Yeah.
I'll answer your first question in terms of the platforms available. There are a lot of platforms online. I think online allows you to get onto like Slack. There's multiple groups of different platforms for you to collaborate in something like that. Different forums. Make Games SA also has a Slack channel. So you meet guys online, and through your ideas you can converse there. And then obviously there's the Maximum Digital space, which is an incubator which has multiple people and multiple companies creating games. Other than that, I'm not too sure if there's any
Sugar, you mentioned a few like gaming weekends where you guys come together and just create games over like 2 days or something.
Yeah, I mean, like game jams are a really good place. That's where I started, going to game jams, making like little shitty things, and slowly like every like other weekend you're making something new, something small, and you're interacting with different people who you possibly will collaborate on bigger projects. Yeah. So those are good spaces to find people online, offline, at game jams, at a maze like this. It's just about finding them and like really submerging yourself into the culture of video games. For your other questions about is it still worth it to self-publish? I think so, yes, definitely. I think if you're willing to put in all the work, then you should want to do that. I think for us at Nyamakop, we're striving to get to that point where you feel self-sufficient. But that's not to exclude indie publishers, because I think for different teams, they have different priorities. And some teams want to really just focus on the game. They don't want to know about what ratings board you need to get, or you need to call IRS to make sure your tax is not withheld in America, and things like that. And a lot of that can be helped with an external party. And that's normally where like a publisher would come through. But I think it's also in your best interest to go it on your own, or at least know everything about it. So if you're saying you want to release worldwide, what exactly does that mean? It's like if you go to Steam, it's like it's pretty simple on Steam, but if you want to do it on console, that's where you learn about ratings from 12 different countries. America wants their own rating, UK wants their own rating, Australia has their own rating. Going to Japan is something completely different there. You need to speak Japanese. So it's once you start like really diving into it and you start to know, oh, this is what it means, or now I need to hire some PR guy in Japan or some PR guy in Korea, and you actively go out and find that stuff, it's good for you. It's good for you because you actually know like, okay, well, I need to sell 30,000 copies, but I can actually spread it worldwide, and that's good. And if you don't know those things, you can't like maximize your opportunities. And then if you're not gonna go it with a publisher, it's also still good to know those things, because everyone can sell you things. Like you'll go to a publisher, be like, yeah, man, we'll take you to Japan, we'll take you to China, we'll do all these things, man, it's gonna be awesome, we've got PR guys. But and then you look at the numbers that they give to you, and you're like, wait, if I did this by myself, or like if I have the effort to do it myself, I can do pretty much the same thing with the same guys that they're using to do the same thing. But if you still want to go with them, at least you know those things, so you know when they're calling bullshit. Right?
Yeah, so it goes back to knowing the factory, but also knowing what happens once the product leaves the factory.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're gonna go into games and you're definitely looking at it, I want to make this, I like to say, sustainable business. So just being able to keep making the next game, you really need to start thinking about it like that. You need to take really good decisions and, okay, fine, I really want to make a masterpiece, but is that still right when it's my first game? So like Tash said, like build up your brand so that if your first game doesn't do well, it's not like you spend 5 years on it. So you spend 1 year, then you build your brand, spend another year. And like a famous guy, Tim Schafer, said, it's also about your back catalog, right? So if you've made a pretty decent game this year, you don't know what new platform's gonna come out 5 years' time. So if you own your IP, you made it 5 years ago, it wasn't that hit because PlayStation wasn't for it. And then let's say, for instance, Nintendo Switch comes out and you're like, yes, that game we made 5 years ago, this is perfect for it. So you have the players from that time, your game is basically done, and now you get to it. But if you had spent 5 years making it, you might have not gotten to that point where you're like, okay, great, let's move to something else.
Yeah, thanks. We've got another question.
Hi, I wanted to ask, when you start a new project with some friends, let's say, at what time do you start thinking about contracts? You know, like legal issues, kind of, or do you just
Day one.
I don't know.
Day one.
Day one.
Day one, because I think it's for me like contracts, or just even a piece of paper that says, hey, we're gonna work on this, and we kind of agreeing that this is what you're gonna do, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is why we're gonna split the money like this. Because once you get to a point where like someone comes in and they wanna buy it and you haven't had that discussion,
Things start going weird.
and everything is kind of in the air. It's like, no, but you said this thing. Remember that time we had coffee? We need to like do it like this. Just start from day one. Just be like, okay, cool. You're doing the art. I'm doing the programming. We'll do it 50-50. And I'd say always keep reviewing that. Because like 6 months down the line, I don't know, he's gotten a job or she's gotten a job and then working on it a bit less. At that point, again, discuss it. Be like, okay, look, you're going to get a job. I'm going to have to find someone else. So can we renegotiate it? Don't get sour. And I also think that's a way to keep friendships. Definitely. Do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, day one, man. Like you don't want to embark on something before signing a contract. It's like really important. I mean, recently I've actually found myself in like different positions, and you know, like now having to consult a legal firm to help me out for this shit, like it doesn't work as a remedy. You know what I'm saying? So if you do it right at the beginning, you're gonna save yourself a lot of heartache. So I think it's very important for you to do that. Yeah.
But do you need a lawyer for that, or?
For me, right? For me, it's quite different. I don't know. For me, I always need a lawyer. I mean, from last month or 2 months back, before I do anything, I need a lawyer. If anything, just make friends with a lawyer. You know what I'm saying? So he can review your contracts. So he can So he can review your contracts. So he can do a lot of things for you. So he can help out. It's very important. I mean, if you can't pay one, make friends with a lawyer. It's very important. Yeah.
But having it down in writing would be a good starting point.
Also, like the legal jargon, it's also like a different story. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to touch legal documents. It's important for me to understand them, but like, I don't want to interpret anything that's in there. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want to do wrong things.
Yeah. I think it comes down to how much money you have. And I think if you're just a small indie and you're both broke, okay? Like just having a piece of paper is just way better, because like you have a piece of paper, there's a good resource called Do Contract. It was made by Adrian Young. Use that. I've done a few edits on it, so let me know. And have it on paper so you both know like, okay, you're gonna do this. Because if now it comes to a point where you argue, first of all, again, you're still broke, so none of you are gonna go to a lawyer at that point. But if you even go to like a third party to mediate it as well, you're gonna both say, hey, look, we we agreed here. And even just between you two, you'll be like, yeah, I did say that. Yeah, you're right. But if you don't have anything, you'll be like, no. Remember that coffee? That was half of the revenue too. You owe me that stuff. You don't want to. I think it's just about having clear framework of what you're working on. I think both parties are not going to take each other to court. It's just if you have something that you both have agreed on this, then you know. And it's also the same time when you find out if you don't agree on stuff. So it's like at least you know at day one, like, oh, actually, they're not on this for the same 12 months. They're probably here thinking 3 months they make a bunch of money. It's just good to get everyone on the same playing field. Having something on paper is always something you can be like, hey, look at this. Yep.
Okay, I have a question. Do you guys know of any local companies or local dev studios that have built sustainable businesses, either through you guys, through your incubation, or just in general? Is it common for companies locally to build sustainable businesses in the gaming space? And if you know some, just shout out some names.
I would say so I'd look at it in two ways. It's what's that game company trying to do, and I would say there's companies like 24-bit games that work in Bedford View, the main guys here. They focus on, they're a programming house, so they have some of the best programmers in the country, and they work for international clients making other people's IP. They also try to make their own stuff, but that's their bread and butter. So it's like making work for hire. And you have a few other companies like that in Cape Town. And then it's basically down to your business model. So you have 24-bit, you have Formula D, you have Sea Monster, Triggerfish has a games division. So everyone's trying to do different things. But if you're doing your own IP, you have people like QCF, Free Lives, there's guys who make Shock Death Attack in Durban. There's a bunch of studios that are making their like entertainment games and they're sustainable. I would say that's a much harder thing to crack. Most of the times you kind of need to have a good hit or like things that just push you over to the next stuff. I'll let you know when we ship, if we join that list. But yeah, those are a few companies.
Sorry, thanks. I just want to add on to that there. Check out a website called Venture Burn. Okay, VNTURE Burn, BURE. And they've got about 18 different startup companies in the gaming industry that they feature on that. And they'll give you some insight in terms of who you should be talking to, kind of, and maybe you can actually learn from some of the stories that are on that as well. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Regina, you've been quite quiet. So say now I've got a product and I want to take it into production. Do you have any growth hack tips for that? I mean, are there any other places besides government? Are there any funders? Is it a matter of going through like a Kickstarter campaign? How do I get there?
I think also, like as a game studio, you have other expertise that you can like outsource or that you can render to other people. For me, like most of my revenue comes from like consulting, game-related consulting, or if you want to like have an engaging app, experimenting and like engaging app, then I can like try to like work you through that. But other than that, it's also making small things that push you to the next thing. So do what you can do and like collect that
So just
2 cents.
constantly lay up yourself and try to get yourself to the next levels.
And also like you can make small things and like release them on each. There's an interesting game that just got released by Laserbeam and it's $2. So with that $2, you like collecting those $2 and then later you like release another one, say it's free, just donate how much you
Does
have.
does that strategy work? I mean, I know sometimes if you say name your price, I kind of put a big zero there.
It's also like building your community. So if there are people who are following you and they've been like seeing the sort of like little things that you've been doing, they are more inclined to like support you, or they feel like attached to whatever you're doing and you're like, hey, yeah.
I mean, I was also going to say that a lot of startup companies or a lot of entrepreneurs also have to be ready for all these type of things, for funding, etc. Exactly what he was saying. I mean, I've worked with a lot of creative entrepreneurs, and I've identified that most of them are not ready, you know, for the funding stage. For example, people would be owning businesses without business bank account, right? I mean, if I do decide to give you money, where is that money going to go? So due diligence is very important, you know, before you do all those things. I mean, you can also go to like private investors. There's people out there with money that are willing to invest in businesses. I mean, I do invest in small businesses, you know, in small content projects. That's what I enjoy doing. And for me to do that, like, your company has to be in shape, right? Because at a later stage, we're looking at acquiring the company and working with the company and involving them in all the activities that we do as an establishment, yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I fully concur with that. Another aspect that I was thinking about in terms of, you know, selling your skill is just an example of one company that I'm working with. He's a self-taught gamer, self-taught game developer. From that point, you know, he learned how to do things. He built a game around maths. So he's teaching young kids how to, you know, so it's an edutainment game. But building on from that skill, he decided, well, in order to fund my maths game, I need to do something else. So he started teaching other kids how to become game developers. That has become a bigger business model than the maths game itself, just the training aspect. We're actually now running that there as a complete separate business on its own, just because that day has taken off so much more than just the game itself. And now this is where he's building the hype for the game, is that he uses the game in the training modules, you see, and he actually builds on from that. So it's definitely selling your skills really does help.
Okay, my question goes to the lady. What has been your experience in this space that is predominantly dominated by men? And what can we do to make sure that we attract women in the gaming space?
For me, it's been, it's obviously like a lot of men here. For me, it has been always like to own my space. Because if you are in an industry, you're probably like interested in it, or you have done enough research in that industry to be interested in it. And I also like normally just use the language that they use to just like make it a point that I'm not here to just market it. I know what I'm doing when I open a Unity, or when I'm trying to like release a game, I know what I'm doing. So like use the language and just like mostly own your space and join the communities as well. In Cape Town, we have like a lot of women-based communities where we come together. Like last month, was it last month, Crystal? We came together and then like we're playing like games for the whole day and reviewing like some of our games in our phones and all of that. So join like a supporting community and also just try to like own your space. Just be there and own it.
I have one question. Finding a publisher is probably not so easy, or finding the right publisher. If you have maybe 3 publishers suddenly who wants to have your game, how do you going to decide, and what kind of criteria you're looking for?
I think, so we're actively in the process of looking for a publisher. I think it comes to you personally. If you go to a lot of publishers, they're all kind of offering about the same thing, especially if you're asking for, let's say, asking for development funding, marketing, and you also, like everything a publisher is meant to do, QA and testing. Let's say you'll filter all of them that give you all of that. So you have 3 of them that kind of say, we'll give you your funding, we'll do your QA, we'll help you market it, great, and we're cool people. So it comes down to that.